thank you. So if anybody, if you have the ability to turn on your camera, that would be awesome. You know, no matter where you are or what you're doing, all backgrounds are fun. Thank you.
Ivan, Andre. Nice. Sweet. It's very interesting. We stop talking when the rooms are open. I wonder why. We're having this moment of silence. I think silence is easier when there's a frame. It's like when it's time box. So
Yeah,
we're going to start at like 1905 and it's 1902.
you know, the silence before the storm, or how did that saying go?
Yeah, it's interesting because I noticed like an expectation, like I should do something. So my body responded. You know, the situation changed and it had an effect on this body. That's kind of what we're going to talk about actually in Microshifts. Like this, I find so fascinating. Like something changed and something felt different. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, I always get that whenever I open the room and people start flooding in, and I'm like, okay, what are you gonna say now? And then say something.
It's weird. It's like, oh my God. And that's what we were talking about. I think public speaking, there is a moment where we kind of leave ourselves. And I think good public speakers, there are many schools, but the two schools I think are interesting is one where they used to say, project yourself, you know, really reach out and fill the room. And the other school, which I think actually they're one of the same, is be totally at one with yourself and let yourself naturally, organically hug the room. And when I've given talks and have not been connected to myself, that's when it's been most exhausting. You know, the talk might have gone well, right? It might have been enthused or inspiring, but I leave and I think, oh, that didn't feel quite right. You know, something got left behind, like a snail leaving a residue. You leave a part of you behind, you know. Yeah,
That's true. Okay.
Topics today.
say that again, Andre.
I'm just asking and wondering if we would talk on business or spiritual topics, because what we started from is more about our inner selves than making some stuff around. Like,
There's two questions I'll ask you. You can choose to answer if you want. The first question would be, what would you like to talk about? The second question is, what's the difference between spirituality and business?
That's perfect answer.
Does it get more spiritual than that?
You know. All right, 1805. So, you know, I'm going to jump off from Andre's beautiful question, but just so I don't disappoint you, if we were to talk about a bit of both, would that be okay? And if we were to include some experience, if I was to guide us a little bit in some kind of, call it relaxation, would that be okay? Yeah. All right. Okay. So
before you start, I just want to say that if you guys have any questions along the way or towards the end, you can unmute and ask them, or I don't know, like with the reactions, you can raise your hand if you don't want to interrupt immediately, and then we will like ask you to ask the question, or you can just drop them in the chat and I will relay them later on. And yeah, big thank you to Neo, who is joining us today. Neo is a British business coach and therapist who's created the Microshift, and he's going to tell us all about it today. So,
thank you. I'm going to read the last sentence from the cover of the book I wrote. So that does two things. It allows you to see what I'm passionate about. And I'll tell you what it says on the back, the last sentence. It says, this is the bio: always learning, forever a student, and slowly becoming teachable. So I think my journey really is in three phases. Feeling like I knew nothing, had little, and didn't have much to offer the world. And I guess that was the first, after the honeymoon period of being early on in my childhood, when I started interacting with other kids, I suddenly started to compare myself and got these feelings that started to creep in, like I wasn't enough. It was like the first phase. Then I noticed there was a phase where I thought I knew it all. And if I didn't know it, I would know how to find it. And this was pre-Google search. There was a confidence that emerged that turned me into an executive. I wasn't an entrepreneur at that point. I was an entrepreneurial executive working in 4 startups pre-2001. And the last startup I worked on, we were 300 people, valued at $1 billion US, privately owned. And I was working on the IPO in Silicon Valley with an investment bank, getting us ready to go out on the markets. And then 9/11 happened. And the flight that I was scheduled to be on that day to get into New York to move forward with the IPO, that flight never happened. And there I was in San Francisco, not able to get on a plane, and the world was a little bit chaotic, and I was scared. So I went from kind of thinking I knew it all to a world shock, I guess you could call it. The world turned upside down quite a lot, and then it continued, right, with Bush's war on terror. Very strange time. Very strange time now also. And any of you who are involved in what's going on in Ukraine, either business or family or both, probably my heart goes out to. I have no idea what it's like. I've never lived through a war zone. I grew up in a very rough part of London and was physically attacked and bullied as a kid, but never in a war zone. So I don't even claim to think or know what that might be like for you. And that was really the third part of my life as well, going from thinking I knew things to being kind of humbly curious. And slowly becoming teachable allowed me to start to be real, or at least bring being real into focus in my life, because I realized that most of my life I was far from being real. When I went to therapy groups after Silicon Valley, I took a year off and did yoga. And that turned into, here I am 21 years later, I keep doing yoga and then got into therapy because I realized I was really screwed up. Most people survive just by getting fit, doing yoga and doing some retreats. I need to go all in to uncondition myself. But along the way, I realized something very painful. I remember getting into a group process. It was in Germany. It was a group process called the Path of Love. And I thought it was going to take me to the next level of yoga and meditation and feel great. But what I met was a panel of people, literally 30 people. And the task was really simple. They said to me, stand up and be real about your commitment and why you're here. They said that the feeling when everybody feels that I was real, they would sit down. So I would stand up, they were standing up. I had to articulate, express my commitment to be here, to want to change, to transform, to be the best version of myself. And when people felt my authenticity, they would sit down. And when everybody sat down, I was done. That was the exercise. We were 12 people. I went second from last. And I saw a person before me go, The next person, they struggled, but eventually everybody sat down as a feedback, like, we feel you, you're real. This was 20 years ago. Now, at that time, I had already exited a company. I had gone into yoga and meditation. Geez, thank you, Andre, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah. The situation I was in was longing for something different, but didn't know how to access it. And so when it was my turn to stand up and talk and express my commitment of wanting to be there, nobody sat down. I was completely shocked. And I tried everything. I tried aggression. I tried full on like rage. Can't you listen to me? Thinking that I could force my way, that people would see me as being real. I tried pleading like helplessness. What can I do? I tried to just throw in the towel and say, well, you know, fuck you, basically. This is not for me. That didn't work. Until the therapist came and just said, sit down, Neo. You'll have another turn. I was completely shocked. Because I'd heard for years that all you need to do is be yourself. These lovely expressions where people say like, be yourself, everybody else is taken. And I thought, yeah, that's cool. That's cool. I'll be myself. And then when I, looked, who am I really? And can I stand up and be myself? The feedback was, no, we don't buy it. And this was completely shocking for me, that there was such a discrepancy between who I thought I was and how I was coming across. And I realized it was the root of the large part of the suffering that had been with me after that honeymoon period early on in my life. It was the root of the suffering that caused the fractions in the playground at school. I guess you could call it bullying, but basically I was not comfortable in my own skin, and that was projected on the outside. It's probably the thing that I'm still working with in trying to build teams, to take a degree of ownership and to be as authentic and close to myself as I can possibly be, and invite that from others by living that example. But I can tell you this, it's a daily work for me. It's a daily work. It's a daily work for my daughter. It's a daily work for my colleagues. It's a daily work for our investors. But when there is a commitment and an intention to deeply connect in a sincere way together, deeply connect in the heart, the body, and the mind, and share something meaningful together, then the whole world changes. And that's what I'm here to talk about today. Because my journey took me to India, to God knows where around the world a few times, and it took me 20 years to get to a point where I discovered a really simple method called a microshift. In order to be real, I thought I had to do something extraordinary. I thought I had to impress others. I thought I had to build a great company with great value. I thought I had to show off. I thought I had to be special. I was thinking everything other than a subtle shift inside of myself to get more connected. We were also talking about this with Zaina about public speaking. Last week, I was coaching a team of entrepreneurs who were getting ready for their demo day. They're at pre-seed financing, pre-seed Europe, so they've raised somewhere between €0.5 and 1.5 million, and they were looking for seed financing and Series A financing. Most of the literature says, project yourself out there to the furthest corners of the room. Very few people say have a close and intimate relationship with yourself and have a conversation with that little boy or girl inside and tell them it's okay. Stay close, and together we will go far. So public speaking is similar to investor pitches. It's similar to interviewing someone, similar to having a sales meeting. It's similar to building a company in every which way. The difference is that success can happen by pure effort and force and by consistency, by showing up, picking up the phone, sending emails, dialing up. But meaningful success, that's measured by how close you've been with yourself on the journey to get where you're going. And the problem that we have as humans is that there is a split. There's a split in our body being. There's a human part of us and a being part of us. And rarely are those two combined in one. Rarely do they cooperate. Rarely do they collaborate. Most often, the human beings. When we're obsessively identified with the human aspects of us, this body-mind organism, when there's a beautiful being, call it access to spirit, universal intelligence, consciousness, that we are always just a microshift away from getting close to. But the challenge of this bug in our human system, this body-mind called the human, is that when we're faced with shocks, traumas, setbacks, we are too quick to identify with all of the rush of hormones that goes through the body, that we don't have enough space to stand back, to pause, to reflect, to listen to that inner voice, to know what the next right action is. We go into basically an reaction that's based on extreme or chronic or acute stress. Now, you know that better than I do. You're in both acute stress, but also contextual stress. You are connected to or living in or operating in or have family in basically a very stressful environment. So it's not easy in your situation, nor is it easy in mine, nor is it easy with so many people around the world to have that deep introspection and that inner connection, which is, I think, the key to a meaningful, fulfilling, and loving life. Any questions at this point or comments? Andre, I'm counting on you for some good questions.
Well, I'm just interested in Microshift. What's behind there, you know, because I feel the same, what you talk about in my life. And this, like, I don't want to spend 20 years to get to the same point, you know. Your experience could be really valuable for us. So it would be nice to hear that. The trick, if it's really, if we can say that this is a trick.
Thank you. Yeah, good comment, good question, and thank you. Trick or a hack? It's both, right? I think we need to trick the mind, right? We need to trick the mind into a new habit. Our wiring, there's a few things numerically that cause us to behave in the way we do. No one's to blame here, right? It's biological. Threat response causes a gush of hormones. We are desensitized, right? Adrenaline is basically a painkiller, right? It gives us a kind of a sense of superhumanness to deal with something, but it desensitizes us. It means we don't feel. And by the time we do feel, we're hungover. And the last thing we want to do is get back into our body because it's full of toxins that are detoxifying, right? So the system is set up for us not to feel. And that was really important a long time ago. But we became social beings, social humans, and the need for us to communicate and relate and interact became more and more important. And so we developed that ability. But when you put stress together with our need to interact, what do you end up with? You've got adrenaline and hormones gushing through our body and cortisol, and our need daily now to interact with people. And what we end up with is desensitized interaction that doesn't really feel good. It's not very fulfilling at the worst of times, and at the best of times, it's marginally fulfilling. The other part of it is this, is that when we are in a recovery or during stress, And stress basically is when our system is overwhelmed, and it's subjective. Someone might be extremely resilient in one circumstance, but not in another. So there's no universal application of stress. It's subjective. But what happens is we lose the ability to reflect. And neurobiologically, it's really simple as well. We lose access to our emotional connection because of the adrenaline flooding our body, which means that our access to our neocortex, or our prefrontal brain lobes, the part of us that can reflect, retrospect, prospect, introspect, gain insights, is seriously dampened. It's inhibited. It's not functioning. And by the time that all of this is flooded out through our bodies, we're so relieved. The last thing we want to do is go back into the lion's den and unopen this Pandora's box and look at what happens. So we move on. And a lot of people in the world do that with alcohol. Alcohol is a really fast life hack to get out of our heads and to forget about a lot of things. We might remember in the morning, but we might not. At least there's been a punctuation. It's like turning a page or being in a new chapter in life, getting so drunk, taking this toxin called alcohol, which basically poisons the system. The next day, again, we're so busy with detoxing that poison that we've almost forgotten about the problem in the first place. This is why we drink so much as humans, to supposedly deal with problems. Now, I've been sober for 16 years. 16 years. And I went into a recovery program 16 years ago because when I was in tech, in .com, I drank way too much and did too many recreational drugs because it was available. And the last thing I wanted to do was be inside this head and this body. I just wanted to get out of my head because I had all sorts of hauntings from a childhood that wasn't that bad. But I got so confused around peripubescence, being flooded with hormones, and then 18 to 25, trying to prove myself from this feeling of lack of self-worth. So that by the time I was 27, I nearly joined that club with Jim Morrison and others who unfortunately didn't make it through. I did. I had a second chance. So age 28, when I got clean and sober, I was like, you know what? If I made it through and was God-given this second chance, I'm going to do something with my life. It was good for 1 year. And then I went downhill rapidly when I lived in Marbella, Spain, and started working as a spiritual coach. I was living a double life. By day, advising people. By night, I was getting drunk again. I was like, this has got to stop. So 16 years ago, I went into a recovery program, got clean, and never looked back since. But I don't know if any of you are familiar with a 12-step recovery program, but drugs or alcohol is only not even half of the issue. The first few steps of AA or CA is, I'm powerless under ... alcohol, cocaine, whatever it is, and my life has become unmanageable. So you either drink because your life is unmanageable, or your life becomes unmanageable because you drink. But both sides of the fence need to be cleaned up. Okay. So with serious issues like that, partying, etc., I think there's an important cleaning up to do. But if like you're running companies, you're on this entrepreneurial path, you want to be your best version, you want to do your best, and then you don't have to go into recovery and go around the world for 20 years. A microshift is what can be possible, but it's needed to be done regularly. I'll tell you one more story, and then we're going to do a microshift, Andrew, and then I'll tell you the method behind it. Toothpaste. In the 1900s, right, people's teeth were falling out and their teeth were rotting, basically A, by malnutrition, and B, by not cleaning their teeth. And it was like a vicious circle. If your teeth fall out, it's very hard to take your nutrition. And if you are not cleaning your teeth, it's very hard to socialize with people as well, because it becomes quite challenging to get too close to people. So FMCG companies like Colgate, Procter & Gamble, etc., SmithKline Beecham, they were like, wow, toothpaste, the product that can keep our teeth clean. And they tried all sorts. Powders that cleaned your teeth. They said to you, if you don't clean your teeth will fall out. But the habit wasn't established until much later. And the brilliance of product development and advertising did two things. They realized that there was a reminder that people, when they needed to clean their teeth, they would feel a film of plaque on the teeth. You could feel it. You could actually feel it inside the teeth, the back of the teeth. Well, my teeth need cleaning, right? Then there was a habit, the routine that they said you brush your teeth front to back, up and down for a couple of minutes. But the thing that brought people back, and you'll start to see the parallels here with the companies you're building, was stickability, habit formation, lifetime value of your customers. The thing that brought customers back again and again and again and again was, what do you think? Ivan, what do you think? The habit, exactly. Or what was the habit? What was the reward? What was the reward? Partly the foam, but they had to get that right because too much foam, like, too little's like, this ain't working. It was the, Andre, I know you've got it. Put it in the chat if you want. He's not sure. Okay. It was the tingling sensation. The tingling sensation that felt fresh in the mouth, right? That was the reward. And that's what caused the habit. Basically, people did something that mattered. They cleaned their teeth and they felt better for it. Now, if you could build any product or company that does for someone something that they need to do because there's a problem they need to fix, right? Teeth falling out is a big freaking problem. And they feel good when they do that and keep coming back. You've got the basic formula for any habit formation or lifetime value. And if your lifetime value is great and your customer acquisition cost, you basically got an interesting business model that you should put some money into. And ideally, in my world, it's spiritual and impactful too, because I don't do anything that's not personal. So Microshift is a bit like that. Let's face it, we have a problem. We're disconnected and we feel shit too often. That's the problem. Okay, let's be honest. And I thought that doing all this stuff, it would be like an upward trajectory. The more yoga, the more meditation, the better I would feel. It did last when I was doing it, but not when life came at me. Divorce and recovery and kids and losing money and whatever. My practices helped, but my state of being went out the window. And at that point, I was longing to go back to India, longing for the big thing, longing to go to the dentist. But what I was missing was a simple habit to basically clean my teeth. So the Microshift deals with three things. One, when you're in a downward trajectory, the brain basically, unfortunately, compounds itself negatively. One negative thought leads to a negative feeling, leads to a negative thought, leads to probably a negative action. This is compounded downwards. It's called the executive spiral downwards, up until the point where we get so stressed we can't think straight and we become overly tactical and probably procrastinating. We basically don't do the things we should do. And because we don't do those things we should do, we don't feel better about ourselves. If we just assume that general trajectory. The good news is the reverse is true. There is an upward trajectory when DHEA, the feel-good hormone, is released. When that's released, you suddenly get a gust, a burst of enthusiasm. You call a friend, you tell a friend you love them, you pick up the phone to a customer, you have a bright insight about product development, customer development, or you have that courageous moment where you do the thing that you've been scared of. This is the brilliance of the human mind. But the problem is this: when you're on a downward spiral, it's really hard to shift out of that. And the mind thinks it needs to proportionately have a big win to get out of the big hole you're in. But it's not true. A big win when you're feeling bad might be a vacation in somewhere really sunny and luxurious, a place that you feel really nice, right? It's not true. Here's where, Andre, we trick the brain. We need to send messages through the vagus nerve that basically communicate that everything's okay in this moment. It doesn't mean to say everything is okay forever, but in this moment, in this micro moment, things are okay. This is step 1 of the method. Step 2 of the method, we need to awaken our heart's intelligence, to open up the limbic part of our brain. This is the gateway to reflective thinking. And by that, we simply remember or recall a positive emotion about someone we love or someplace we've been. Step 2. Step 3 is to ask yourself a reflective question. A, B, listen to the answer. Okay. And this deals with A, changing the downward spiral by stimulating the vagus nerve. And we're going to do this in a minute. B, opening up your higher order thinking by stimulating a positive emotion. And C, asking of yourself a reflective question and listening to the answer. You want to try that? Yeah, let's do it. Okay, those of you who are not on camera, if you're driving, please. Good. Thanks, Ivan. That's fun. Yeah, my world is a bit wacky, I guess. Yeah, by design, I think. Hello. All of us. Hey, Maria. Hey, Aski. Hey, how you doing? All right. So, going to guide us for a couple of minutes, and for this, I'll just let my voice change a little bit. There were 2 things that regulated us in our early childhood. Someone's voice. Not all of us had easy childhoods, and some of us had booming voices. But at some point in our lives, at some point, somebody early on talked to us in a soothing voice and probably made eye contact and said, hey, little Ivan. Hey, Andre. Hey, Maria. Hey, Victoria. And this was important. In the work we did in New York with Harvard Health Institute and the Boston Trauma Center, healthy attachment was really important for healthy inner development. And what we found was that in the orphanages that we work in and continue to, we just won a President Clinton, ex-President Clinton grant and award for the work we do. It's 15 years now, the work we've been doing in the West Indies. As you might know, island life in the Caribbean is and has historically been devastated probably every 3 or 4 years with hurricanes. It's not a war zone under attack, but it's an environmental, very difficult place for island life. So one of our big projects, we went in there after Hurricane Ivan in 2007. And of course, resources were constrained and the orphanages that we partnered with were not getting the help they needed. So we went with extra services. And what we found was in the care homes was that if there was one caregiver who was lovingly present, it would help the kids living there who were without biological parents or had grown up in a very difficult or abusive family environment. It would give them a sense of connection, a sense of resource and safety and hope. And voice is very important. So I'm going to use my voice and you're going to use sound. One thing that you can do is hum. Simply make the humming sound. So it's a breath in. And when you exhale, you're going to hum 3 times. That's it. So go ahead. And I'll just talk over this. What this is doing is stimulating your vagus nerve. It's not saying that the world is okay and not insane, because to be honest with you, it kind of is. But it is saying that in this moment, you're sending a message that in this micro moment, in this moment, it's less crazy inside. So now you can keep your eyes closed. And the second stage is to recall a positive memory of someone or something, where that memory gives you a feeling of, you could call it gratefulness, love, connection, meaningfulness. Could be someone close to you physically, it could be someone distant, it could be someone alive or not. And just take one more step and see if you can breathe that feeling into your body. I know that might be quite a stretch for some of you. But let whatever feeling that you associate with that person or place, and just breathe it into your body for a moment. And what you're doing now, you're actually you're releasing DHEA hormone into the body and creating momentarily an upward spiral. We're not saying this fixes your problems, we're saying we're tricking the brain. Next is the third stage, the reflection stage. The question is going to be this. Even in this period where perhaps resources or options or possibilities are constrained, so even in this situation, what is one thing that you could do to pass on some goodness or love or help to someone that you deeply care about? I'll say that again. Even given the constraints of the present situation, what is one small thing that you could do that would lift someone close to you, that would enhance their life a tiny bit? And just use your imagination here to see what that might be, and maybe you get a picture of someone or that you're doing something. And if you're struggling, I'll give you a simple example. I just thought and saw in my mind that I'm going to send a message to my wife and just say, I really appreciate that she's putting some attention to Christmas decorations and just looking at, you know, our time ahead, our family time ahead, that I'd like to share with her. And just, I'll probably do that by a message or a voice message I'll send her. And when I see myself or imagine doing that, it makes me feel a little bit connected to my heart. So whatever your example was, see yourself doing it and then just breathe that into your body for a moment. And the reward, think of the toothpaste example, is how do you feel right now? As we close this gap between, you know, our inner world and our outer world, we're really closing it with A, reflecting, and B, sensing, being sensitive to what you're feeling. And remember, we said listen to the voice, because you do have a deep contact with yourself. Everybody does. And then when you're ready, gently blink open the eyes and rest in this for a moment. I'm gonna just bring you back slowly by giving you another input. Something is quite interesting. There's something called a post-workout calorie burn. let's say you go for a run, you swim, you jump up and down, skip, hop. The body burns energy during the exercise, but the body also continues to burn energy after the workout, post-workout calorie burn. The same goes for what you've just done. That feeling of connectedness continues. And I actually researched this for about 10 years. I researched it working one-on-one with clients. 2007 to 17. And I used a device called, it was called M-Wave. It was produced by a company in San Francisco, just outside. And it was designed to measure heart rate variability. Now, of course, wearables measure this quite well, and it's collected nicely in Apple Health. But at that time, it was a device that was attached to the earlobe. And I would work with clients with the biofeedback computer displaying what was happening to their heart rhythms during the session. The measure of heart rate variability, according to HeartMath, is either coherent, meaning positive and connected, or not. And there is a range. You could become more coherent and you can have a high coherence score. When clients would sit down and we started the measure, it wasn't surprising that generally they would not be in a coherent state, not be in an emotionally connected state, not be in a resourceful state, right? And therefore their reflective intelligence was inhibited. They were in a stress state trying to recover. When I guided them through something similar that you've been through, and I asked them, open your eyes, and they looked at the measure of their coherence, it was not surprising to me, but very surprising to the client that they went straight into coherence. And it was visualized with this green bar, red incoherence, green was high. What was fascinating is this, that coherence continued for minutes after the exercise. This was the beginning really of Microshift in 2007, essentially. It wasn't codified by then, and it certainly wasn't built into a tech product. But what happened is this, when coherence levels were high, then I introduced a difficult subject to the coachee, to the person. I said, do you remember we talked about difficult situation A? They said, yeah. We brought back the difficult situation and we tested. Did the coherence go down? Were they negatively affected by dealing with this difficult conversation? No. What happened was the good feeling lived on for long enough to be able to look at this difficult situation with a fresh perspective from a connected heart and a very wise mind. Fascinating that it took a few minutes to get into the state. Oh, it was very quick to get out of coherence before coming to a session, a few minutes to get back in, and then it lasted long enough to tackle a difficulty. And so the Microshift method really was born from there. And when I asked someone, how does it feel to address this difficult situation now from a place of connectedness? They said, well, it is a difficult situation, but I feel proud that I can look at it. I feel courageous. I feel inspired. I feel energized. I'm also scared. And I regret that I didn't deal with it sooner, whatever they said. But there was what I call a cocktail of feelings. Not one feeling was overwhelming. We can have mixed feelings. We can feel scared, regretful, shame, guilt, and positive, hopeful, courageous. We have the capacity as human beings to hold all these feelings. And that is amazing. So I think we're 1946. I wonder if this might be a moment to just put it back to you and just, I know that we wanted to leave some time for questions and comments. So does that make sense to just open it up, Zaina? Shayna or Zaina? Zaina or Zaina?
It's Zena.
Zena. I love it. So yeah.
Well, now, can you please repeat those three steps?
Yeah, I'm gonna speak it and write it in the chat. Regulate. The technique we used today was humming. Okay, generally it's sound and breath. So another technique could be the letter V. It's something that takes your mind off what you're thinking about momentarily to trick the mind. It's, if you're on a downward spiral, it's like pressing pause, okay? Because that spiral compounds itself. You have to press pause, but you don't have to go to India, okay? Regulating the nervous system. Connect was the second part, and the technique there, and it comes actually from Heart Math Institute, the work I was doing, their work, their method, not mine. I just applied it and it worked. But I combine this into the Microshift method now. Connect, and it's really simple. Remember or recall a positive memory of someone or something. Someone or something, and then breathe that feeling into your body. And I hope that you felt something. Most people typically do, and what happens is that the brain doesn't distinguish very well from imagination and reality. So if you imagine someone or something where you feel good, and then you breathe that feeling into your body, your brain's tricked. It's like, wow, I feel good in this moment. You know, we're not saying it's solving the world's problems. But what that does is open the brain up in that moment. It doesn't need a lifetime or a Zen monastery training for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. It opens up just enough to ask a reflective question. Now, Maria and Andre, I can see your videos, so I'd like you to nod. Did you get some insight? Did you get some kind of information when we asked the question, is there someone? Remember, I said, given the constraints, right? It's not a perfect situation. It never is, but it's quite not perfect right now. Given the constraints, is there someone that you know that you could do a tiny thing for to uplift them a little bit? Did you get any information?
I was making the notes.
Sweetheart.
So.
Exactly. Sweetheart. Good. Andre, did you get any information? Yeah, good. Okay. So this is what was really fascinating, that, you know, all those years, do you remember I said that I thought I didn't know anything, and then I wanted to know everything, and that was false. And then I became teachable and started to become curious, and now I feel quite balanced. Still need to work on it, but this spiritual hole was like, I didn't even know I could ask the questions of myself, let alone get answers that I could write down and direct my life. It was like crazy, you know. And the gurus that I went to, they kept saying the same thing, right? I'm going to do a really bad Indian accent. They're like, the truth is inside of you. I was like, where? Have you got the key? You know, is there a passcode for that? And that's what they just kept saying. And then the other ones said, like, you have to trust the truth. I was like, what? You know, maybe someone else knows better than me. Maybe I should call a mentor or an advisor or get another guru, or maybe I should search in Google. But the problem was with all of that, which is not bad, but it's not mine. It's not authentic. It might be helpful, but it's not authored. And then entrepreneurs, like we all are, right? Our investors say, I'm investing in you. You're like, what? but I've got a great idea. Yeah. But you're a person with a great idea. You're the one that's going to take this all the way. And I want all of you. And again, it's like, what do you mean? What do you mean? Because deep inside of us, we have this lack of belief, or we don't fully trust the inner voice. And one thing that I've known from entrepreneurs is that we do too little, too late. And that's probably the second greatest regret. And the first is that we hire too fast and fire too slow. And we should hire very slow and lovingly fire very fast if it's not working out. And rather than do too little, too late, ask of yourself the deep questions in a good state of being, and then put that into action as quick as possible. But what we do as entrepreneurs, we create all these strategies and structures, somehow hoping that that will make the organization fly and feel better. But what I say is you need to put your state first before your strategy. Because when you're in a good state of being, you're going to think more clearly. You're going to have more courage to confront or to engage in difficult conversations, difficult situations. You need to put your state of being first before strategy, because how you are affects everything you do. You do not see the world as you are. You see the world as you think you see the world. We rarely see the world as it really is. We have our own perspectives. And most of the time, our perspective is warped by an inner state. So when we couple reality and being real, my book, when we couple reality with being real, the reality is the situation, the fact of the situation, and being real is being honest with yourself, asking yourself the questions like you just did, and listening and acting. Then you're basically magic makers, you're alchemists. Now, I'm not so interested in making gold, but I am interested in making the world a better place for us all, and for us all to be enlightened entrepreneurs, meaning if someone says to you, be you, well, then you do you, and I'll do me. You be you, and I be me. And then we're not just going to be successful together. It's going to be meaningful. It's going to be impactful. It's going to be fulfilling. And you're going to awaken every employee who crosses your path, because this is not just a business journey. For me, it's a spiritual awakening. And entrepreneurs are holding the keys. And with great gifts, which you have, come great responsibilities to spread it in a good way. And people do not want a freaking MBA from God knows what business school for you to copy what other people did. You are entrepreneur artists. You're finding your way. And the more you do it in your way lovingly, that lifts and elevates everybody around you, you're not only going to go fast, but you will go far. That's it.
Okay, maybe we can open up if anybody has a question or something. But maybe meanwhile, I can ask you a question. How often do you practice Microshift, this series of, and maybe are they, do you practice them when triggered by something, or is it just like a general thing you do?
We released the product about 6 months ago, and for 1 year, I was doing Microshifts 3 times a day, and it completely changed my life. It was like, now we're evolving Microshift even more now. Microshift requires the user to engage and do something. And I think from a business perspective, if there's a product that can piggyback on what you're already doing, and so that your effort doesn't have to be any more. So I'm working on that right now in stealth mode. There's some really interesting things that we're doing. Maybe that's another talk one time. But for 1 year, 3 times a day, and something completely changed in my brain, completely changed. Now, remember, I've been meditating for a long time. What it did was it gave me a language to retrospect. Now, we do these in stand-ups, right? Retros, stand-ups. What went well? What did I do yesterday? What I'm going to do tomorrow? And what I need help with, right? But we don't do that in a growth perspective. It's like, you know, what am I proud of right now? What am I least proud of? What could I have done? What should I have done? What will I do? What did I like? What did I lack today? What will I get, you know, to take care of that? So basically, we took the intelligence of retro and stand-ups and applied it to personal growth and closed that gap between I could have, I should have, I would have, I didn't. We closed that gap. I could have, would have, should have, I did. So I would say get into the habit of once a day or a couple of times a week. Try it out. And the app is free. Like I say, we're working on some really other wacky stuff as well, algorithms that basically help us be more real on a global level. Really wacky, interesting stuff. And even being real, being more sincere, I believe is a microshift. It's a tiny, tiny, tiny adaptation of the course you're on. I'll give you one more thing around this. What's fascinating around brain science is up until the age of mid-20s, where our prefrontal cortex isn't developed as it is now, our executive function, we generally put being right over being real. Or we fear so much being caught out as kids and teenagers, nice, Andre, that we, you know, like my daughter, sweetheart, did you finish the orange juice? No. Because there's an element of fear that I might be disappointed, which of course I'm not. I don't mind at all. I'm like, sweetheart, just tell me I can get some more for you, right? But throughout this period of our youth and teenagers, I don't know if you can remember, but I would tell the truth to 80%, but not 100%, for fear of guilt, shame, or something. I would withhold something. At around age 25, the brain develops and we start to do a different kind of equation. We put real over right, that we know that sincere, emotionally connected, transparent relationships are what bring us closer. Even businesses now, you see it more and more. Honesty, realness, transparency, right? The stock markets wish that from you as well when you IPO your companies. You need to be transparent with your numbers. So the idea of hiding something, which we all did at some point because we were scared to be found out to be wrong, so we put wanting to be right over being real. And this needs retraining. We need to literally retrain our brain, mind, bodies to put real over right, because real is the real deal. It gets us closer to people, it gets us great deals as well, and allows our investors to trust us. Because the thing is this, and again, it's another talk, but when your words and your sentiment, the tone of your voice, your body language, your face expressions, when they are aligned, when they are in sync, there is impact, there is impression, there is inspiration. But if you're thinking something, but your face is expressing something else, or your words don't match what you really think, there is a lack of integrity. And as human beings, the greatest gift that we can do is to be real. And the greatest opportunity we have is to be real together. And that requires training, unfortunately, because we unlearn that subtle art of being real with each other. Who's the guy with the beard? I can't pronounce your name, but you look awesome. Frank or something. How do I say your name? Can you unmute?
His name is Vlad.
Vlad, no?
Yes.
Hey,
I'm
Vlad. I know a few Vlads. Yeah, Great.
No, thanks a lot.
Yay, good.
It's a great story. And I hope nice app. I have already installed it. We'll try it out,
Good.
and then meet you in the Google Play reviews if it works.
Thank you. That's really
I'm
kind.
sorry, but I need to drop to another call.
Go for it, man. Nice to meet you, Andre. Thanks for your time. Go get him. Ciao. All right. Good.
Okay, anybody else has a question for Neo? I'm already on your app, by the way.
That's sweet. There's some really nice stuff in there, and it's with my voice at the moment. And you can try it a few times, and you'll start to understand the structure and the. It's nice. There's a micro journaling thing there as well. Like Maria was journaling. I didn't talk about that, but reflective intelligence. Some of you, when you came out the mini meditation, are in such a reflective state that journaling, writing it down, really helps ground things. And you can either do that with pen and paper or in the app itself. You know, very powerful.
Do you think journaling works for everybody? Like, it's not an easy habit to pick up, I would say.
Journaling's really interesting, and I want to give deep thanks to Julia Cameron, her book, The Artist's Way. It really helped me to work through some things. She has a method called the morning pages, and it's really simple. There's two things in her book, and it's a 12-week program. I think it's a very affordable course. It's the price of a book, and honestly, it really enhanced my life. Exactly. Two things. One, write 3 pages every day, just write. And when I started doing that, you know, I really was judging myself. And she said, just write whatever you got. So I was like, I can't write. I've got nothing interesting to say. And then I was like, oh my God, I'm so full of it. Or God, this self-doubt is crazy. And all of a sudden, you know, it's like a page and a half. I was like, oh my God, I'm writing. And then I would write, oh my God, this is fascinating. I've nearly written. And then I made my writing bigger. I was like, oh, thank God, 3 pages. And she said, just write everything. And now what happened was I got over a big self-doubt of writing. And after doing Julia Cameron's, or taking her advice, I said to myself, I'm going to write a book. And I did it in the same way. Every day, I just wrote a little bit, and I created a structure and a bunch of chapters and sub-chapters and subtopics and a theme and a title. And before I knew it, you know, 6 months, the book was written, and then there was 6 months of publishing stuff with artwork and proofreading stuff. So that was the first thing, Julia Cameron, and I'll come back to the journaling part in a moment. But the second part that Julia Cameron, the main part of her advice was go on a date with yourself. And that was tough. And she said, no phones, a date of at least 2 hours, right? So I was like, holy guacamole. And I used to get a bus and go to a nature reserve close to where we live, 30 minutes away. And I'd literally be like having almost a panic attack. And I would take my pad and I was like, at least I'll double up. I'll go for a walk and do my pages. And I was like, and then after a while of sitting on this, you know, wherever I was in a lake, you know, there was some spontaneity, some creativity that started to come back. So those moments of boredom were replaced with sensing and just, you know, noticing a fly or a ripple on the water and becoming curious. And I think this boredom thing is getting harder for us to deal with. There was an experiment, a group of people put in a room and were told to deal with their boredom for 15 minutes, or they could hit a buzzer where they would get an electric shock, right? Stimulate, that would be painful, all right? 66% of the men did that and 25% of the women. And there was one person, I won't say if it was a man or a woman, hit it like every 4 seconds. So, you know, we would rather give ourselves inflicted pain than basically deal with our boredom and being with ourselves. And that's what we call the space, to have that shift into a reflective state to create the space. So here's the thing, journaling is good, and what can happen with journaling is it becomes a pity party. Poor me, poor me, poor me, poor me. In my opinion, the best journaling is when you shift into a good, connected, positive state. And even from that state, if you're looking at something that's difficult, better journal when you're in a good, connected state. So journaling is great after a little bit of meditation. If you're just writing from a negative state, you're actually imprinting that negative neural pathway, and writing things down tend to have a habit of coming true. So yeah, that's my experience based on that.
Very interesting. Should try that.
Try that. Yeah. Good. All right. I am gonna send a message to my beloved and tell her that I really appreciate that she's preparing us for Christmas. That was my insight, and I'm going to execute on that, which actually is, I think that's an important, maybe last point. When you get these insights, do something about it. I call it like David Allen meets Dalai Lama. David Allen was famed for his method called getting things done, GTD, getting things done, the 2-minute rule. If you can do it in 2 minutes, do it. If not, schedule it and spend 2 minutes to write an agenda for when you're going to do it. And Dalai Lama, of course, is one of the more better known Buddhist leaders who talks about a space of connection and meditation. But when you put meditation with getting things done, you get the right things done. If you do too much getting things done, you just get things done, and too much meditation, you might end up doing nothing. So I like the marriage of those two. And again, when you reflect, then write it down and then do it. So if my reflection was I need to do this for my beloved, then I'm going to do that. I'm going to do it straight after this call. Of course, there's part of me that thinks, I won't do that. She won't care. Of course, that's called the super ego. Anything to stop us leaning into the discomfort or picking up the phone, making that sales call. Do it tomorrow. No, do it now. As Arnold Schwarzenegger says. So, yeah, action. The right action is needed. That's it. Good. All right, beloveds, I'm gonna go.
Thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Great.
And the recording will be available on Slack if you guys want to go back to it. And I'm dropping a link also for our survey. Please take it. It's a 2-minute thing, just to help us improve the coaching and let us know what you want more from the coaching sessions. Neo, thank you again. And
thank you, Zena. Thanks for your time. Thank you.
Everything.
Thank you. Thanks, Aski. And
have a great day. Bye.
So, hey, much love. Ciao. Bye.